Hi everybody, welcome once again to Health Talk. My name is Dr. Joe DiPrima, and I hope everyone had a very healthy and happy Thanksgiving. All right, we're going to be taking a short break. When we come back, it is Diabetes Awareness Month, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about diabetes, and we're also going to have the author of Death to Diabetes, Dwayne McCauley, on. We'll be right back. Well, we're going to be talking to the author of the book, Death to Diabetes, the 6 Stages of Type 2 Diabetes Control and Reversal. His name is Dwayne McCauley, and his story is absolutely fascinating. And Dwayne, I want to welcome you to Health Talk. Good to have you here this evening.
Hello, Dr. DiPrima. How are you?
Good. How are you, Dwayne?
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. And before we get started, I just want to thank you for putting me on your show a couple years ago. Because of your support and people like you, I've been able to get on some nationally syndicated radio shows.
Well, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. We are focusing on diabetes this evening because it is Diabetes Awareness Month. Dwayne, for people who may not know your story completely, can you give us a brief summary of what happened to you in regards to diabetes?
Yes. Basically, it was 5 years ago in March 2002. I went into a diabetic coma. I was diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic. I was put on a drug protocol of 4 shots of insulin a day, with Coumadin to thin out my blood and Lipitor because my cholesterol was off the charts. The drug therapy, first of all, to your listeners, I have nothing against drugs. Drugs saved my life. However, long-term use of the insulin and the Coumadin was causing my body to continue to break down. And through some trial and error and some direction from my mother, I basically moved away from the traditional grain-based breakfast and dinner protocols to a vegetable-based raw food program. And within 3.5 months, I was off insulin, Coumadin, and it took another month for the Lipitor.
Now, Dwayne, did you have any symptoms prior to your diabetic coma?
Yes, I did, Dr. DiPrima, but at that time I was having frequent urination, but I wasn't intelligent enough at that time to realize that it had anything to do with blood sugar. In fact, I thought it was a problem with my prostate, and so did my doctor. He had scheduled a physical for me to come in. I just had a physical 3 months earlier, but he had asked me to come in, but unfortunately I went into the coma before the doctor's appointment.
I see. Now, when you came out of a coma, you were all hooked up to all these tubes, and you had all this medicine in you. And did you realize what was going on, or what happened after that?
Yeah, well, my daughter flew in from Pittsburgh, and she basically explained everything to me. And 3 doctors walked in and basically told me that I was a type 2 diabetic and that I was lucky to be alive. And because of the seriousness of the diabetes, my blood sugar, the doctor said, peaked at 1,337, and they felt that because my body had started to shut down, that I was not going to come out of the coma. So they were surprised, happily surprised, that I did come out of the coma, but they said I would be on insulin the rest of my life. And when I asked them why, they couldn't answer the question. That bothered me. So I was put on disability from Xerox at the time, and I started doing research with my daughter's help. And through some accidents, stumbled across some foods that helped to lower my blood sugar. Basically, my mother, when she came up to take care of me, she made me eat Brussels sprouts and broccoli for breakfast. And surprisingly, my blood glucose level started to slowly come down. And within about 30 days, I was able to start weaning off the insulin. So within 3.5 months, my blood sugar had returned to normal, and I was off the insulin.
Now, Dwayne, do you have a family history of diabetes?
Well, I found out later during my research, before I wrote the book, that people in my family had diabetes, but we didn't talk about it. I found out my grandmother had it. They believe my father had it, although he ended up dying of a heart attack. When I started doing research, a lot of people in my family either have diabetes or they're severely overweight. But when I did the research, what I found out is, although it appears that diabetes runs in families, it's not the genetic makeup that actually causes or triggers the diabetes. It's our lifestyle. And as you mentioned it earlier, we eat much of the processed foods in combination with the sedentary lifestyle, and that triggers insulin resistance, which can eventually lead to type 2 diabetes.
Now, Dwayne, tell us a little bit about the research that you did. I mean, you are an engineer by nature, correct?
Exactly. And as an engineer, when we don't understand something, we do research. And the one thing that is wonderful about our country is the information is out there. It's just that it's not put on television. No one comes on television to tell you to eat broccoli. No one comes on television to tell you to eat Brussels sprouts. People come on television, they tell you to eat pizza or to go to McDonald's.
Exactly.
And so when I discovered studies have been done on food, the power of food. So it's nothing new. I'm not reinventing the wheel here. And after I worked for the American Diabetes Association, and people in the support group tried eating broccoli for breakfast and they got better, that eventually, with my mother pushing me and my daughter pushing me, to write the book. And again, thanks to people like you, if you go to Amazon, the book is now one of the top-selling diabetes books.
That's fantastic. Now, Dwayne, how did your mother decide of all the different types of foods to eat? And certainly, we're going to be talking a little bit more about how there are good foods and bad foods. But of all the good foods to eat, I mean, why didn't she give you mangoes, or why didn't she give you tomatoes, or why didn't she give you corn? Or I mean, what is it about?
That's a very good question.
What is it about broccoli and Brussels sprouts for breakfast? And what possessed you to eat something like that for breakfast?
Right. I asked my mother that, and because once I did the research, I discovered that Brussels sprouts contains a specific phytonutrient that addresses insulin resistance. I found out in the research that broccoli contains the highest level of chromium of any land vegetable. I found out in my research that spinach contains a specific enzyme that helps to repair the gastrointestinal tract. And I asked my mother, how did you know? She goes, son, it was easy. These are the foods that you didn't like, and these are the foods that we grew up on, and God told me to feed you these foods. And you're not going to argue with my mother. So, but I knew that when I wrote the book, if I put in the book that God said that you should eat these foods, I knew that people wanted the medical science rationale behind it.
So now, what happened when you went to see his doctor? I mean, did you start to wean off the insulin yourself, or did you tell your doctor, gee, you know, I'm eating Brussels sprouts every day and my blood sugar is getting better? Or what happened in that regard?
Yeah, my doctor, my primary care physician, was very supportive, Dr. Sammy Canoe, very, very supportive. But the endocrinologist was very upset with me. And he said, Dwayne, you're in denial of this disease if you think you can wean off insulin given the state of your health. And the state of my health obviously was I was in pretty bad shape. But being an engineer, I was testing my blood glucose level 7-8 times a day instead of 2-3 times a day.